Stop stroking your microphone like a penis just because you really enjoy it. You know he'll leave that in. You know he'll leave that in.
Oh, what, have you started recording?
Yeah.
Oh, good God.
I'm Batman. Good luck, Harry Potter.
Well, cover me with eggs and flour and bake me for 40 minutes.
Hello, and welcome to Screen Masters with me, Bav.
Oh, me, Fluff.
And this week we are going to be looking through the Alien sextology. I don't know, what's six? Because we struggled with the pentology for Die Hard, but this one's six.
It's whether we include all of the, like, Alien versus Predators.
Oh, no, we haven't included any of that. So let's be clear. We've gone...
It's all part of the same universe.
The main franchise Alien films.
Yeah, okay.
The six main franchise ones. I've watched Alien vs. Predator and Requiem far too many times, particularly AVP, because it was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who I looked at as part of my dissertation. So I've seen that far too many times, and it's a, typical Paul W.S. Anderson, because he just sits there in the director's commentary going, oh yeah, I really like this in this film, so I thought I'd do it in mine. And essentially, it's a tribute to Cube, which is a great film, but Alien vs. Predator, not so much.
No, very much not.
Because what was the tagline? Wasn't that something like, whoever wins, we lose?
Yeah.
And fuck, has that ever been more true?
Oh, yeah.
Than with that film? Whoever wins,
almost killed the franchise.
We all fucking
almost
lose.
killed the franchise of both.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, yes, we're going to be looking at the main Alien films. The main franchise Alien films this week. But, as always, it's been a bit of time. And we need to have a little chat about what we've been watching.
Sure. We do try to avoid this between podcasts.
Oh, indeed. So we've got some notes and stuff we've watched. Now, following on from a film that you mentioned back on, I think it was the beginning of episode 6 or 7, something like that. You mentioned a Chinese film.
Yes.
On Netflix called Shanghai Fortress.
Yes.
Well, on your advice, I went and watched it, and you weren't wrong. Yeah. It was a right little gem, actually. There are things I could have done without.
Oh, yeah.
I think the music was perfunctory for the action sequences and verging on biblically awful for some other sequences, particularly the love sequences. When the romance angle kicks in, I felt like I was listening to Steve Wright's Sunday Love Songs or something. It was that cheesy and basic and cliched almost.
Yeah, I didn't love the romance scenes in this at all. They just felt unnecessary as part of the whole story. It just felt like they shoehorned them in a little bit as well.
I agree. I think the effects were really good though, mostly. Like the big action set pieces they did, I thought looked fantastic. The story was good, solid, but it's based on a book. So, you'd hope that it would have a solid basis for a plot. I didn't know any of the actors or actresses. I did some research, and the only one I recognised actually was the actress's name is Kui Shu, I believe, and she played Lin Lan, the female romantic lead, who was the general.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Who he was pining after the whole time. But the only thing I knew her from was she was the package in the Transporter film, the first Transporter film.
Oh, okay.
She was the girl he was transporting.
I recognised her from
That's it, I recognised her face and looked her up. But other than that, the main lad is a Chinese actor, singer, sort of a Disney prodigy, I suppose you'd call him, of the Chinese nation. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought, like I say, the love sequences, the romance angle, I don't think it would have been as bad had the music not have been so cheesy and stereotypical of a romance scene.
Sure.
Like, I think you can do romance in action, that's fine, have a romantic thread running through it, but you've got to pitch it right.
Yep.
And I just feel that overpowered it when it did kick in. But yeah, it was. There's a really good sequence I wrote down. It's a big sequence. I think it's towards the end, but there's an attack inside a building.
Yes.
And the whole sequence plays as like a one shot, a one-er. I mean, it's not, because you can see the hidden cuts and the wipe cuts and stuff, but they do it really, really well. Considering, again, when you're talking about Chinese action cinema, of which there isn't a huge amount, really, available to us anyway, it probably exists. We just don't have access to it over here. But, yeah, when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's that's Hollywood blockbuster type stuff. That's really, really good. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. And Stuba.
Yes.
We mentioned that with our mate Mr. Batista. I'm not going to do it because I can't. My throat's...
I walk for miles inside this pit of danger.
There you go, lovely.
Had to do it.
Yeah,
It's been in my head
That's
for
fine.
freaking weeks. Man.
I know we both did agree that we were walking around for ages afterwards, just singing that to ourselves.
Yeah.
When I say I walk for miles inside this pit of danger.
Kumail Nanjiani is how we're going to say his name. That's what we're going with. Kumail, if we're wrong, please tell us. Otherwise, I'm going to go with this because I'm going to assume you're never going to hear this or tell me. However, it was all right for what it was.
Yeah, I mean, it
was entertaining enough.
Yeah. I still really, really enjoyed it. I think because I've been watching, I think I've gone through such a spate of DC animated stuff, and I've watched a lot of series. I haven't watched kind of just a simple switch on, turn off kind of a movie like that for a while. I enjoy both of the actors involved in it. I saw kind of many of the plot holes the plot devices, shall we say, moving forward. But at the same time, just watching Dave Bautista kind of, who's lost his eyesight, still try and fight and do this, that. It was just, I just found a lot of enjoyment, and especially the scene where they're pummeling the shit out of each other in the department store, and they're using every object. And I just found a simplicity to it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. Because what's his name? Iko Uwais is my favourite from Wu Assassins and The Raid and Raid Redemption.
Yeah.
Mile 22.
Yeah. Seems a little underutilised.
You know what? My next line says he was kind of wasted.
Yeah.
He's got about 2 lines, and the problem is it was directed by an American director, so the action sequences he's involved in are all 3-second cuts, rather than something like The Raid that was directed knowing that the action sequences could be played out. You could stick with him because he's just that damn good, that you don't need to cut around his weaknesses because he's just that good, Something that annoyed me is and I it's because Kumail was in it, and that's how they've got the comedy from it. But and it popped up in another film, which I may talk about in the intro to the next episode. Hobbs and Shaw has the same problem. But when did we stop writing comedy jokes? When did we just say to the comedy actor that we brought in, just go over there, improvise about 50 lines, and we'll pick the best one? And it's like, because it feels like that. It doesn't feel like part of the script. It feels like he's just gone through, because the reactions aren't the same. The tone isn't the same even in the voice, because you can tell that they've done a bunch of cuts of different jokes. Yeah,
I think he again, because he's comedy-based actor, I do think that, he probably did quite a bit of ad-libbing. It does seem to be the trait of... Well,
I blame Ryan Reynolds for it as much as I love him.
We've had this discussion recently about that.
Because that's what they did with Deadpool. He just shot loads of different jokes, and then they picked the best ones. So then they did it again in Deadpool 2, and then Detective Pikachu, he did pretty much the same thing, and just ad-libbed the one-liners, a bunch of them, and then they picked one. And then, as I say, we may discuss it later, but Hobbs and Shaw that I've watched, he's in that as well. And he's just doing the same thing.
He's very much the same character, very much.
It's just getting on my nerves now, because it's like, I remember Ryan Reynolds when I watched a film called Buried, and he's actually really good in that, because it's just him, pretty much, on his own for 90 minutes, buried alive in a casket. Where's he gone? I'm just left with this constantly improvising guy who never seems to know which line he actually wants to put to film. So he just says all of them. And it's like, it works to start with, but when you've seen it so much, you're just like, but this is just the same joke that we had in that film. Why are we doing it again in this one? Can't we write some new jokes?
No, I mean, there is an increased sense of ad-libbing through the Hollywood comedians now. I think a lot of it is less structured, perhaps, than it used to be. It's just obviously twists and turns of Hollywood and how comedy comes out in this day and age. I'm sure we'll, bounce back to... It's that thing of cycles of films. We suddenly have a cycle of, like, romantic comedies. That's kind of stuff for a while. Comedies are kind of stuff. Obviously, superhero stuff is kind of at the forefront. Yeah. We have the horrors kind of popping up, and
horror stays pretty consistent.
It stays pretty consistent. But we've had a few other kind of big hits as of late. I think, I don't know, whether the comedy cycle will bounce back at some point. Who's to say? I still, I mean, don't get me wrong, yeah, I did note that kind of tone from the film at points, but again, I just tried to switch off my analytical and logical brain, and I just tried to enjoy it as a film. Don't get me wrong, we go through everything that we watch with that analytical side. That's just how we work. But yeah, for this one, I kind of switched it off and just went, I'm just going to enjoy this for what it is. Silly action comedy, just leave it at that. That's,
like I say, I got some enjoyment out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That is, like I say, perhaps it's because I watched Hobbs and Shaw recently before that as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was fresh in my head, and I was like, oh man, I don't want this again. I don't want to want, but I'm fed up of this ad-libby bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
That's just fucking pick a joke, guys. Pick a joke.
Yeah.
All right, I've had enough. Like, I don't watch the 30 minutes of outtakes that you put on the Blu-ray of you just saying the same thing roughly over and over and over again for 20 minutes until someone goes, yeah, cut, that's fine, we'll pick something out of that, no worries. But other than that, I agree with you. I think it is perfectly fine for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Turn your brain off, go and watch it. It's an entertaining 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Of 40, something like that.
Yes.
But, it's near enough. It's not a 2.5 hour comedy, which no one wants, really.
No.
Go on, you got anything you want to mention? Or
yeah, so I mean, again,
get into the main topic?
No, I mean, so again, I'd obviously watched Stuber. I'd watched a couple of other things. Again, Hobbs and Shaw. I've not really got much to say on that, to be honest.
Oh, that's fine. I've got a little bit to say, so
that's
let's
fine.
perhaps leave that for
we can
brief
that for the next show. The other thing that I watched, and you know what, I don't often turn around and say I'm not going to recommend this, but I'm going to say I'm not going to recommend this. I watched The Laundromat on Netflix, which has got Gary Oldman, Antonio Banderas, and Meryl Streep in it. It's
good cast. I don't think the name sells it, but
no, it's essentially a story about how companies kind of launder money through offshore, intermediaries, etc. Mm-hmm. I was hoping that this would be something special, and yes, it kind of had a point about that aspect of money laundering and how it all kind of plays. But it just felt jarring all over the place. I'm not gonna say I enjoyed it because I didn't really. I got to the end and kind of went, I've sat through all of this. Gary Oldman, considering how he's recently won an Academy Award and we've seen him in such good stuff, I didn't like his accent in this. It kind of detracted a little bit for me. There was a few jarring things about it. Without giving too much away, Meryl Streep at one point has got prosthetics on and clearly he's playing another person, and I'm like, it's Meryl Streep. I'm not stupid. I know it's Meryl Streep.
You still look like Meryl Streep.
Yeah, you still look like Meryl Streep, and I know exactly who you are, because why are you putting that kind of makeup on? It just didn't sit well with me, I'm not going to lie. Another couple of things that I have been watching. So I mentioned obviously about The Righteous Gemstones before, the HBO show. I decided that, as we are both fans of bulk watching, I decided to save a bunch of episodes. I had a bit of time off recently from the working environment, thank God, and I decided to save a load of stuff so that I could watch it. Now, I watched 5 episodes of Righteous Gemstones.
Yeah.
Now, it was hilarious when I first started watching this. I didn't realise how much heart that this show was going to develop. I'm not going to say too much because I still want people to go out there and do watch it whenever it becomes available on English TV or on streaming platforms. But I really enjoyed this. By the end of the last episode, there's a real sense of heart in there. There's still the comedy and there's still stupidity. There's still nudity for absolutely unnecessary reasons. And it just
gotta love that, as long as it's not Melisandre.
Well, put it this way: you see more male dick than you probably do in
brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, oh, good God. I'm not going to say the scene because if you watch,
I'm not even joking. I'm all for that. I think it should be totally fair.
It's just
if you want to put a scene nudity on there, put loads of men's dicks on there.
It's just the scene
fine.
in question. When you see it, you'll understand why. But honestly, it really, really was good. John Goodman's fantastic in it. Danny McBride's great in it. They both just put really good performances in it. John Goodman is very much kind of the serious portion of this show. whereas Danny McBride and Adam Devine, they are very much the comedy front of it. But I loved it. I really loved it, and I'm hoping, I don't know at the moment whether there's a season 2. I'm certainly hoping there is. The other thing that I've been watching quite a bit of has been South Park, as we've recently discussed.
Yes, I too have been watching some South Park.
Which
trying to catch up again.
Kind of going as a throwback. I downloaded a couple of the South Park games and just decided, you know what, while I'm playing these on my time off, let's watch a bit of South Park. And I'd forgotten how much I love this fucking show. It surprised me quite how much I'd forgotten how many of the classic episodes there were.
Yeah, absolutely. 'Cause I think you're right. We both made a conscious decision to catch up, and also go back and watch some classics that we very much enjoyed. Are you up to date?
I am totally up to date. I think there was one episode this week which I've yet to watch.
I've got 2 or 3 episodes at the end of season 22 to watch, and then I'm on to season 23. I don't want to say too much because I think we will do a South Park episode.
I think
so.
I think we've determined that.
And I don't want to get into the finer points of some of the series. I mean, obviously, it's a fantastic show. If you're out there listening to this and you think South Park is poo jokes, fart jokes, and 4 little 8-year-old kids being stupid, then potentially that's what it started as.
Yes, most definitely.
Potentially that you could be blamed for thinking that. But I would argue that by season 3, 4, we'd gone a totally different direction.
Oh, yeah.
And by the modern stuff, it is more satire and biting satire at that most of the time, and comment on the world, the world and America and politics, and there's pretty much nothing they won't touch, and parody in some way. But I generally think they're right. Their point that they make, regardless of how they go about making it, the I've learned something today, guys, is generally bang on, and that's why I love it, because they're not wrong, really.
Yeah, I mean, you've certainly got coming up soon in season 23. They do comment on the China situation. Just wait until you get to that, and again, you'll feel the same. I'm not going to say too much more because I think we definitely, having discussed this, will cover South Park. I've got so many anecdotes about how I got introduced to South Park and where I saw the first episode and stuff like that, but I think we'll save that for a future one. The last thing I'll just say is Watchmen, the first episode of Watchmen.
Okay.
So I think it's, let's talk about a comic book show because that's what we do.
I haven't watched this, and I have no intention of watching it.
See, I didn't initially.
I'm not interested in another film set in the Watchmen world that takes, from what I've seen, takes Zack Snyder's style of it. I mean, the way it's presented. I mean by that,
it's not a spin-off from the film. This is
no, absolutely not. I'm just saying the presentation of it and the way it seems to be shot to me is invoking Schneider's style.
I wouldn't have necessarily said that, but okay. I mean, I'd like
to say I may be wrong because I haven't seen it. I've just watched trailers and stuff and TV spots.
I've watched the first episode. Second episode, I've yet to watch. I think I'm going to probably save a few as usual to try and bulk watch stuff. But the first episode did give me a little bit of hope that this might turn out to be good. I've been doubtful because I think we've both talked about the Watchmen film and how much of a bit of a disappointment that was. Yeah. The graphic novel is hard enough to get through as it is. The spin-offs and everything else, the current storyline that's going in through DC Comics at the moment called Doomsday Clock, which we've both been reading and discussing as well. Yep. So yeah, it's an intriguing one, put it that way, because it's taught me something about American history which I didn't know. I'm not going to say any more than that, but I think it is something that you may perhaps go back to. We'll see. Well, I'll give you the full review of the series once it's finished.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because like I say, at the minute I have no intention because I did not. It's not that I didn't like Watchmen. I actually think Watchmen stylistically and to view as a film is entertaining and looks glorious at times because that's what Snyder's good at. He's good at style over substance, and that's what's missing. Because let's face it, Watchmen is all substance, as you say. If you pick up that graphic novel, it is a wordy comic book. It will make you read, because that's what comic books did back in the old days.
Most definitely.
Because the art, the colours and the arts and stuff, you couldn't be as detailed as you are nowadays because of computers and stuff like that helping it to become clearer. But yeah, I never liked it because I never thought his style as cool as it might be, and as well suited as it might be to something like 300, I don't think it fits Watchmen. I don't think that slick, glossy style was ever Watchmen.
No, I
don't ever feel that Watchmen
it
was
should
like
have been
that
grittier
whilst
than
watching
it was.
Exactly, that's what it's missing. That's what I'm trying to say, I think, yeah. Because, yeah.
It was too polished.
Zack Snyder's idea of grit, as we've seen in, well, Batman, Superman.
I'm not going
was
there.
his,
we're not going there. We're not going there.
As we've seen there, his idea of grit is putting sort of a browny filter over the lens.
We're not going there. We're not. Let's not go there because we will rant about that for otherwise.
Excuse me, I may cough every now and then because I'm still suffering from the after effects of an illness, and I only mention it just to explain the coughs. Okay, let's crack on to this week's topic. Now, as we said at the beginning, there are 6 films that we are looking at. They are the original Alien from 1979, Aliens from 1986, Alien 3 from 1992, Alien Resurrection from 1997, Prometheus, which I think was 2012, I apologise if I've got that wrong, and Alien Covenant, which is 2017. And the most recent one.
With my boy Danny McBride.
Obviously, yeah, with Danny McBride, although you didn't even watch the film.
Well, I've had a lot going on.
You have watched which ones?
So I have watched.
Obviously, I've watched all of them.
Yeah.
Because I'm me.
Yeah, you're you. But to be fair, I did watch almost twice the amount of DC animators that you did.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair with this one, I gave you, 3, 4 to pinpoint if you only wanted to watch a few of them.
So I watched Aliens, Alien 3, and Prometheus.
You see, I'm shocked you watched Alien 3. That was quite possibly one of the worst.
Yes, I know, but I needed to watch it.
I do think Resurrection's the worst, but
I had to watch it because it's the worst.
Yeah, fair enough.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I wasn't about to go and watch Alien vs Predator because that wasn't part of the
No, and that's totally worse.
Exactly,
That's a whole different ballgame of worse.
So yeah, go ahead.
So there's an interesting thing as we go through these. I actually, I've got a big Blu-ray box set that they did after Prometheus with loads of extra stuff in it, and each film has a director's cut or special edition. Because in 2003, I don't know what the relevance was, but in 2003 they decided to release... they gave every director of every film the opportunity to do a special edition. So the Alien I watched was the 2003 director's cut, as Ridley Scott calls it. James Cameron did the special edition of Aliens in 1990, and didn't go back and do anything to it for 2003. Then Alien 3 was done as a special edition in 2003, and Alien Resurrection also got a special edition in 2003. So I've actually potentially watched different versions to you, but also particularly Alien 3, but also different versions to potentially the listeners, because they may not have known existed. But I've seen these films so many times, I decided, hey, sod it, I don't think I've seen all the special eds, I'm going to watch the special ed. So, starting back in 1979 with Alien.
1979.
I know, and this is the thing. The problem with Alien in the modern day is parody.
Yeah.
You can't watch Alien, it's difficult to watch Alien and take it seriously. Plus, but you have to go in with a brain that says, I need to respect this. Because, is it fast-paced? No, it's a slow-paced film. It's a slow build. It's methodical in what it's doing. It positions things that build and build and build and build the tension before then tripping over. Now, in the modern day, you don't get that. No. You get your quiet bangs kind of scares, but they are built over seconds. And that's their idea of building tension, is I'm going to put 15 seconds worth of children singing a nursery rhyme and then do a jump scare to get the reaction. No one puts any effort in with some of it. Admittedly, there is some good stuff in the modern day, but your homogenised standard stuff is really not well thought out. But you've got to bear in mind that essentially a ton of sci-fi, horror, thriller, a lot of sci-fi tropes generally came from this film. This is where they came from. This is like Die Hard was our genesis for the action comedy. this is Genesis for pretty much any sci-fi horror film. And like I say, I'd even argue some sci-fi films that don't stray into horror.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've some of the first notes that I made when I was going through this, you know, again, I was like, 1979, this is still the mainstay of sci-fi horror to this day. You know, you got, granted, the first appearance of the facehuggers, and it's those eponymous kind of moments throughout the film that have been replicated in different ways and different comedies, as well as horrors. Spaceballs, that's it. Again, I was just about to say, you know, that eponymous alien bursting from the chest moment, which has been replicated in so many things, so many times, that it's hard to look at this film without considering the impact that it's had.
You would have to have lived in a cave and seen nothing of sci-fi horror, potentially sci-fi in general, if you wanted to appreciate this as the original audience might have done. Now, like I say, does it mean it's not scary? Well, by modern standards, I'd struggle to say it scares me. I really would, because even though they build the tension well and stuff, obviously I know what's coming. And I would argue that even a modern viewer who hasn't seen it before probably knows what's coming because you've seen it parodied somewhere else.
Yes.
And because that idea started here. So I think it has to have a lot of respect for that. You've also got people like John Hurt, Harry Dean Stanton, some great actors in there.
Oh, most definitely.
Who do brilliantly. There's a great twist with the robot that, you know, is a twist, but again, I don't think the modern viewer would see it that twisty.
No, and again, I think I put something here that this is going to be a callback to a future film with Prometheus in that
absolutely.
respect. So again, it doesn't tee it up because we never knew that was coming, but when they were writing Prometheus, they went, okay, that's something that we could maybe include. So it kind of plays off of itself. Yeah. Again, I mean, Sigourney Weaver as Ripley, being the complete badass that she is, she made that female protagonist so important, especially at that point in cinema, being that kind of a person. I mean, later on in a later film, she gets nominated for an Academy Award, for Christ's sake. That speaks volumes to the character and to the actress.
Think she's strong in this one, but I do think Aliens is where we see badass. Yeah. That's where she becomes a badass.
I mean, I'd still say we see shades of that in this. Like
I'm not saying she's weak.
Yeah.
She is easily one of the strongest team members there. Yes. You know, she is the least phased by a lot of what's happening. Yes. Well, not phased, but, you know, deals with it logically and rationally, while others around her are perhaps taking it more emotionally, and they're men. Yeah. Something I found quite interesting, actually, when I was watching it, I hadn't realised this. The last three people alive are two women and a black guy. Yeah. Which for 1979 is actually quite something, isn't it? There's Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, and Yaphet Kotto, who I love because he's Kananga in Live and Let Die.
Yes.
And I love that guy. He's brilliant. And obviously Yaphet Kotto's done so much stuff. Go and look up some of the stuff he's done. He's brilliant. But yeah, that struck me as being amusing. That was the case back then. I mean, in summary, I appreciate it as Genesis and how well made it is and how well paced it is. But I don't think it's as scary as it was by the modern standard, just because of the way things are these days and the amount of violence we see and things like that. But definitely, you know, it's got to be up there. It's because it is Genesis. Yeah, it is the start of it all. Without it, there's nothing else.
No, I mean, it's again, it's the little things within it. I think one of the main notes that I kind of made was the android turning on his crew, and he expresses his admiration for the alien psychology because it's unhindered by consciousness and morality. And I think that's just brilliant. Yeah, because again, it doesn't just portray the alien as an entity that needs to be feared. It also portrays AI at that point, which is again
absolutely
something which picks up a lot further down the line. But again, it was just for being in 1979 of all. I mean, you think how long ago that was? Now
I think it holds up well as well because why is that? Practical effects.
Yes.
That's why. Yes. Because there was a guy in the suit, in the alien suit, and it was designed by H.R. Geiger, and it looked fantastic, and you bought it, you know, with all the drool and everything, because it was real.
Yeah.
It looked real, you know. And again, I just think we've been desensitized to the xenomorph over the years.
Most definitely.
Because of the CG ones, as we'll come to later, you know. But yeah, so it stands well, but it isn't a patch. I wish I could go back and see it in a vacuum, as people would have in 1979 or whatever. So then, some 7 years later, good old James Cameron came along and decided he wanted to do an action sci-fi horror, which was interesting. So, at this time, I would have said we're probably at, for me, what was peak Cameron, I think. He knew how to do his sequels. Yeah. We got T2 after this, I think it was.
Yes, we did get it after, yeah.
And had he done Terminator by this stage?
He had, hadn't he?
So we'd done Terminator, fantastic. Had a crack at Aliens. So, the plot, essentially, we're going back to the planet that LV-426. It's 50 years after the first film.
57.
57. Ah, okay, fair enough. I just wrote 50. Sigourney Weaver's character survived and has been found in an escape pod and been brought back to Earth. And she's told that she's been gone for 50 years, so her daughter is dead. And we kind of spend, again, I don't know whether this is just a special edition, because I know it's a good 20 minutes longer than the standard edition, but we spend quite a lot, at least like half an hour at the beginning, setting the scene, dealing with what happened at the end of the first one, and setting things up for the next one. And it's necessary, I feel, because why the hell would she ever go back?
Yep.
And you have to get around that problem.
Yeah.
And I feel they do that in a satisfactory way that explains it to us. So, it's 50 years later. They've sent a colony ship out to LV-426 to colonise and terraform, which is what Weyland-Yutani do, which is the company that Cameron introduced in Aliens, which carries on throughout the franchise, but it was never mentioned in the first one. It's an introduction of Aliens. So they build better worlds, so they're trying to build a better world here. Now, when she comes back, she tells them about the ship and stuff, and so a colony team is sent to go and look at these coordinates that she says, and they're a family with a little girl who becomes relevant later, and the dad comes back with a facehugger on his face from the ship, and they hightail it back to the colony. Of course, all hell breaks loose from that point. So from Earth, they send a load of Marines out to go, plus Ripley and Paul Schneider, who plays Burke. Reiser. Paul Reiser, that's his name, not Schneider.
Yes, it is.
He plays Burke, who's just the slimiest corporate greaseball that you can ever imagine. And again, that's probably some of the origin of corporate greaseballs in movies was here from him. So yeah, they go back, and we've got all these Marines. The team of Marines is really well rounded, I feel. You've got Drake and Vasquez, who are the guys with the big guns. Obviously, Vasquez is the other ass-kicking female that we've got here. I mean, Jesus Christ, this film's quite testosterone-y, I would say. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people about the first Predator film, and there are some females I've spoken to, some women I've spoken to, who said, I can't watch it, it's just too manly, you know, it's too testosterone-filled, and I get that.
So, when you say that, it actually makes me laugh, because, again, when you finally get around to watching Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which he needs to do badly, there is a point where they talk about the bulkiness and how much mass. There is an actual joke within that, how they've been watching Predator for so long. He just talks about body mass and how much he had to... And it's hilarious because they talk about that very thing.
Really? So, yeah. But yeah, I would argue that someone like Vasquez, she's got more testosterone than most of the men in the fucking platoon. Like, she is ridiculous. She's got balls of steel, that woman. Then you got Higgs and Hudson, who's Michael Bain and Bill Paxton. And again, like Bill Paxton's Hudson, he's a whingy bitch. He's the one freaking out over absolutely everything. And Sigourney Weaver's like towards the end when they're the only ones. He's one of the crew left alive, and she's like, "For fuck's sake, Hudson, pull it together, man! I can't fucking handle you like this."
Yeah, she continues to be. She continues to be the. Well, as we've said, she was a badass in the other one. She continues that and then some in this.
Yeah.
But considering the impact of the previous film, she's in control.
Yes, that's it. She knows what she's dealing with this time, and again, that's why I think the early stuff. Because I hear a lot of complaints from people that it's too slow to get going because we spend half an hour sort of tying up loose ends and setting up where we're going. But I feel that helps. It's necessary because it does set her character up for, why am I going back? And I'm going back, but I know what I'm dealing with this time, so I know what to expect. So she, like you say, she's just more in control of what's happening, or it seems as if she is anyway. Who's the leader's name? Gorman. The leader of the military, but as it goes on, you realise that actually he's only done simulated combat drops, not actual combat drops, and the Marines are like, oh my god, and he's a wimp, and he doesn't want to get into anything, and he's a bit of a dick, really. But already that's our team of Marines. You know, again, you look at a lot of modern films with a team of Marines, I struggle to name more than two.
They're very
of
generic.
The characters, because they are so generic, whereas these guys, they are quite well-rounded. I mean, yeah, okay, Drake isn't hugely well-rounded character, but I know he's Vasquez's not partner, but, you know, in inverted commas.
Yeah.
He's the other big gun, because they both have the massive guns, and there is obviously a chemistry between them that isn't sexual in any way, that is respect. And again, that's quite interesting to see from 1986, a big, beefy man respecting this smaller woman because she's a fucking badass, and fair play, you know? Apone, I love Apone. He's the black guy who leads the team and keeps calling them, the drill instructor, but a black drill instructor. It's so good. He's like, come on, ladies, get up this morning, or whatever it is. But I like him. And also, I made a note that when they're going down into they're going down the stairs, because obviously, again, I think this is the first time I can remember us seeing first-person shots, like cameras on head.
Oh, I see.
Shots. A first-person viewpoint of a team going into a situation. Again, it pops up throughout the rest of these films.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
But I started thinking, and I couldn't think of any film that had done that.
No, but again, it does sound like a Cameron kind of thing.
Exactly.
He experimented
exactly.
with this.
He played with it, and it works really well, because when again, it has more fear in it, because it's chaos. When things start kicking off, you don't get the full picture of what's happening, because you're sat back with Burke and Ripley looking through screens at what's going on, and you can just hear screaming and crackling vision, and now that screen's gone blank, and why is this guy doing that, and this guy doing that, and it creates that chaotic tension of, oh my god, what's going to happen? What's going on with them?
And then, again, that, as we discussed with Alien and the eponymous scenes that have kind of been played out in so many things, again, that same kind of style has been played out in so many action films where a camera goes down, another camera goes down. What the fuck is happening? Yeah. And it happens
Screams
all
over the radio.
Exactly. So,
But yeah, my point of Apone was actually, as he's going down the stairs, he says to them all, keep it tight. Is that where he got it from? It just occurred to me, I was like, that is the only time I can think of someone saying, keep it tight. And it's the way he says it, because he goes, keep it tight,
We know what, we'll probably have to investigate that one.
I know.
For those who don't know, that is a shout out to Up Up Down Down, which is the YouTube series of Xavier Woods from WWE.
Get well soon.
Get well soon.
We're going to miss you, buddy.
He's out
he's
of action
got an Achilles tear, so he's out for ages.
But yeah, he signs off everyone with the eponymous words, keep it tight.
And yeah, that's the first time I'd heard it, so I wondered whether that's where it came from.
I didn't even pick up on that.
It says the word downstairs, he just goes, keep it tight, people.
Okay, we'll have to look into that.
But yeah, like, many of the team get their own little arcs. Apone isn't in it for long, but he doesn't really get much of an arc. But like Gorman, the weedy idiot chief of these Marines, he gets his redemption arc. He gets to be the good guy at the end. Obviously, Burke doesn't. He gets his comeuppance, as he fucking well should, because he's a sleazy bastard who tries to kill them all. That's Paul Reiser for you. Yeah. When you look at the effects mostly hold up really well, I feel. And why? Because it's miniatures, or it's practical effects. It's actually built stuff. I think the only time where it falls over is like the classic game over sequence, where the plane's crashing behind them, is green screen. And I think, no matter what age it was, if the film was made around this time, you can't mask green screen cuts very well. No. So the miniature stuff and the crash behind it looks fantastic. The people running away looks absolutely fine, but you put the two together and you can clearly see they're not lit in the same way and they look apart from each other. But I'd rather that
than the CGI nonsense we get today.
Really crap CGI that we wouldn't have been able to do in 1986, or even worse, going back in 1990 and chucking CG at it, I'd still rather that. So yeah, the special edition, I clocked it at 2 hours and 37 minutes. I'd like to say, people say the first 20-30 minutes drags because we're dealing with fallout and stuff, but as I said, why would she do that? Why would she go back unless we have some reason? Did you catch Captain Hollister? Shout out to the Red Dwarf episode. Captain Hollister from Red Dwarf is the chief of the colony when you see them before all the attack happens and stuff. He's walking around talking to someone and they're talking about the site that they've sent someone to. Yeah. But it's Mac McDonald. It's Captain Hollister.
I didn't pick it up.
And that was 2 years before he played Captain Hollister.
Oh, there you go. Maybe it looked a little bit fresh-faced and I didn't pick it up.
Yeah. But, this is obviously ridiculously quotable. I mean, I've already covered Keep It Tight. They mostly come at night, mostly, from Newt. The more I think about that line, the more... I mean, how much does that line say about a character? As silly as it sounds. But it tells you so much about her and her experiences just from that one little line. And obviously Game Over Man, which...
Game over, man!
Game over, man! Game over! Which is, again, Hudson freaking out because they've got no plane to get off. What do we do now, man? What do we do now?
That's been played over so many times in this day and age.
How ridiculous is it? I was at work, and I work in schools. I'm an IT guy in schools, and there was a child who was having a break time listening to an episode of something on CBeebies, and that quote was in it. One of the characters turned and went, "Game over, man! Game over!" I was like, that's from Aliens. Yeah. Why is that in a 3+ kids show? What? But it's so weird how it gets in. I made I have an agreement with the good lady now because she listens to this. The good lady teacher Erin does. I insist that she watches some of it. I mean, I wasn't going to make her sit through anime.
Oh, okay.
But with this, I was like, look, you need to watch a couple of them at least. So she was going to watch Aliens, and Prometheus. Sure. And she didn't end up watching Prometheus because neither of us were very well at the time when I needed to watch it. But I don't think she was that impressed with this one. I don't think she was particularly scared by the first one. She said almost like, what's the fuss?
Yeah, sure.
Because again, I just don't think it pulls through. But I think it was... I think it's the testosterone levels. I think it was a bit too manly for a feminine female. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll disagree. That's absolutely fine. But that's the impression I got from her anyway. Which is a shame because, like I say, the female characters in there are actually quite strong for their time. But yes, they are essentially men. That's the role they've been given.
I see your point, yeah.
They're male badass characters. They're, apart from Newt. But then again, Newt's got the sort of... Well, she's got more survival skills and stuff, hasn't she? Whereas the other two main women, which I'd argue is Vasquez and Ripley, are total badass women who are just they're harder than the men, and the men are the wimps most of the time, But it's an interesting juxtaposition, I find, because you've got these hard-ass Marines who are the ones who are wigging out and can't cope with what's happening, versus... There's 4, I think, females, because there's a medical officer whose name I can't remember because she doesn't have a particular arc, really. So you've got Ripley, Newt, and Vasquez, and then this medical officer. But they're always the ones in control. The men are always the ones that are freaking out, with the exception of, Hicks, because he's a Marine guy and he's fine. But yeah, particularly Hudson, Burke, Gorman, they're all just freaking out all the time and can't handle it. And I find that really interesting considering this was a mid-80s film. Okay, I think I'm done with that one. You got anything else to say?
No, I think, as I say, I mean, it's, there's just a couple of scenes and a couple of shots which make it for me that kind of, that Ripley film to show she's a total badass when she's... Yeah, particularly the end. I mean, that's it. She, when she refuses to leave without Newt, and then she basically tools herself up for battle.
I love that. It's like because it's like a Rambo montage.
Yeah.
Where he does the whole headband. I can't remember which one it is, but there's one where they spend about 5 minutes watching Rambo tie things around his head in his 24-inch pythons or whatever they are, and he's just getting himself ready for badassery. And yeah, she's strapping a fucking flamethrower to an M90 machine gun or whatever it is and duct taping the bastards together so that she can do maximum damage.
Yeah, so I mean, just those kind of shots of showing the sheer badassery of who Ripley is. And again, that shot of Ripley in the kind of exosuit is just, again, you go back and look at that, and again, she's just like so hardened by that point, so brutal. Yeah. She's gone through all this shit, and she's still there, she's still fighting, and you just think, that's one badass fucking woman. So yeah, it's a couple of those kind of shots. Again, so many. The Game Over Man quote for me just still cracks me up to this day.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it by far holds up at this point for me as the best of the bunch.
I think at this stage definitely it was, and it's interesting because that film sort of inspired the is there any other thing where the sequel's better than the original? Mm-hmm. And it sort of sparked that question, I feel.
Yes, very much.
It was this film that did it, because there wasn't really anything that was better than the original up until this point. Now, it's been suggested we should do an episode looking at that, and we may very well do so in the future. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's more difficult nowadays, because do you say sequels?
Yes, this is the difficulty of that conversation.
Personally, when you get to stuff like Fast and the Furious, I love the first one, but the fifth one is not the same film as the first one. No. So I don't feel that you could say the fifth one, even though I would rather watch the fifth than the first, because it's far more entertaining. It's the first one that The Rock's in.
Okay, right, okay.
And that's,
you know them better.
That's where it gets the jolt of charisma.
Sure.
It's also the one at the end where they're pulling like a bank vault behind two cars, I think. That's the one I'm thinking of. And that I love that film. It's entertaining as all hell. But you can't compare it to Fast and Furious because they are not the same film at all.
No, not
they have changed by that point. We've gone somewhere else with the franchise.
I think that's something that we'll have to discuss off pod and debate over.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Okay, we're running quite long on this one, so I think what we'll do is we'll stop now, call this one part 1, and then push the next one, the rest of this discussion, to the next movies episode for us. Thank you for joining us. If you want to get involved in anything, go over to the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/The Screenmasters. There's a permanent link there pinned to the top of the page that will give you the links to YouTube, Spotify, Patreon, all of that good stuff. Come over and see us there. You can send us a message. We do read everything. We're interested to know what you guys think. For now, I shall say I have been Bav.
And I have been Fluff.
And this has been Screenmasters.